Hey, you on? Jeff? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool beans. Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Hey, Jeff, make sure you optimize your video now so you won't forget.
Well, I don't have any videos, so, but I mean, I'll optimize it just in case something.
Just in case. Just in case. You never know. Hope everybody's doing well. Get your pen and pad out because we're going to be taking some good notes tonight. We are definitely going to be having a good time. Hope everybody enjoyed your holiday last weekend. Brandon, what's up, sir? How are you?
I'm doing good. How you been doing?
Doing good. Can't complain. Welcome to the call. Hello, Bill. How's it going, Bill? Bill, are you there? I guess not. The man of the hour is on the call. Mr. Gary Gustafson is here, our head clinician and head interpreter for IHSA for basketball. Welcome to the call. Mr. John O'Malley, welcome to the call. Mr. Johnny Arrington, also welcome to the call. Glad to have you all here with us this evening. Get your pen and pad ready because we're going to be taking some good notes tonight. Mr. Michael Costello, hello, sir.
Clarence, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I
Good.
took a little break for a while, but I'm
Okay.
back.
That's all right. Hey, we all deserve a break every now and again.
Right,
Got to retool and recharge and get ready for the season. So
right. I got my new IAABO book,
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
I'm into that a little bit.
Great, great, great. You like the book?
You know, this is great because, you know, it has a lot of case studies, you know, along with when you're reading the rules. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
And
I'm gonna try to get through this within the hour. That's the goal. I understand that the Bears are playing, so some of you are Bears fans. I don't know why. I'm not a Bears fan, so I'm just giving you a little crap, but I do care because the quarterback that they're playing is from my hometown school, so I do care. So, but I want to be respectful of your time. There's 30 things that I'm going to cover. And what I want to kind of preamble this is these are things that I've learned over the years. Um, this will be my 30th basketball season. I know Gary's been doing it a little longer than me, but in that 30 years, I have learned a lot of things from a lot of officials, from some of the best officials in the country. Not just ones in Illinois, not just ones in our region, guys from all over the country, guys that if you see on television, I literally can watch almost any major college basketball game or the NCAA tournament, and I can see guys that I've met and 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 been clinicians at stuff that I've been at, or guys in the NBA that I know personally. Even Danny Crawford, who got inducted to the Hall of Fame. I met Danny Crawford more on one occasion and had some conversations with him about officiating, along with guys he's met like Mark Davis and others. So the reason I'm saying all of this is because a lot of the things that we do as officials comes from every level. It's not something unique to high school. It's not, if you see something that I'm talking about, this is something that they do in the NBA, at the NCAA level as well. A lot of things. Now there are some things that are going to be specific to high school. So my point is there's going to be a lot of material. I want you to an individual named Tides Hildebrand, who used to be an evaluator for the NCAA, used to say a short pencil is better than a long memory. So write this stuff down. And here's what I also want to do just in the effort of time. I'm going to try to do 10 of these at a time, and then we can ask a few questions at that point, get to the next 10. And then if there's questions at the end and we didn't answer it, or there's something that you still need to clarify, we'll stick around and whatever to answer some of those questions, because this is going to be a lot I'm going to throw at you, but it's going to help you understand what it is that we do. So these are 30 things. I'm going to start off real simple with a couple of them that might not even make sense at first. Number one, an air needle. Get an air needle. I don't. They are very cheap. You can go to any sporting goods store or any place that has tires. Actually, you go to Walmart and actually get them. Get an air needle. And why is that? Because 9 times out of 10, basketballs are overinflated when you get to the game. they are almost always way overinflated. And why does that matter? Because if they're overinflated, that means they're going to come hard off the rim, the backboard, long rebounds, missed shots. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you are missing, if you have a lot of missed shots in your game, that's when we have to work the hardest. And if we have a lot of missed shots in our game, we also probably got to call more fouls. And then it looks like we don't know what we're doing. As opposed to if they make shots, nobody seems to care what we do. If we call 5 fouls, 10 fouls, they're making baskets, no one cares. But if they're missing a lot of shots, that's a problem. So get one to just take some air, a little bit out air. I do a little test where I put the ball above my head. I'm about 6 feet tall. If it bounces anywhere near my shoulders or face, it's probably too inflated. So we need to take some out that maybe comes up to maybe about 4 feet. It's a feel thing. It takes some time to get used to this, but you're going to have to take air out the most basketballs because they're way overinflated. So they need to be underinflated. Also, another thing that will do prevents high dribbles, which everybody think is a carry. It isn't. Just one less thing that you got to worry about if you get an air needle. Put it in your back pocket, put it in your jacket, whatever you do. Just one. It's a really important thing to do. A lot of veteran officials do this. Something we don't talk about. First impressions. First off, first impressions are very important. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So when you make a first impression, it's got to be a good one. But let me also say this: your first impression is not always when you show up to the school or when you get onto the floor. Sometimes it's how you talk to the people when they email you, and whether you get back to them in proper time, or if you talk to them on the phone and they ask you things about, filling out paperwork. How you treat the people that may not even be at the game is extremely important. And if you treat these people with like crap, or you are disrespectful or anything like that, you'd be surprised how that gets back to your supervisors. So always be professional in your interaction with the school. When it's business, so they're calling you about something, they're trying to give you some information. When you get to the school, just be careful who you interact with. I've even known people to have a bad interaction in the parking lot because of something of a parking spot and say something, and you're saying something to the principal or you're saying something to the athletic director who just is coming from another place. You never know who you're dealing with. They might be even the business manager who's paying you that night. All those things can matter. So please be very cognizant of who you're dealing with. Be very professional in your emails and your responses. Even if it's something you don't like or you're concerned with, still be professional. It's sometimes some schools are way better at this than others. Some will a week or two in advance will give you email updates about their school. But if they ask for information, respond in a timely manner to get that information back to them, because it might help them to get paid. I've even had schools where they have an address that I had in 1999. And sometimes they said, hey, is this your current address? And it clearly is not. And it's frustrating, but you got to be professional in how you deal with those people. So first impressions are very important. Number 3, goal setting. Goals are extremely important. If you have not officiated yet, I suggest that you set some goals. And whatever those goals are, that's up to you. You can set goals for a number of games you want to work. You can set goals for where I want to be at the end of the year. You can set goals for what rules I want to read and what I want to know. Whatever they are, set goals. Goals are extremely important to your progression as an official. And not only just set them, be willing to change them over time. Even this year, you might say, hey, I want to work 50 games. Well, you may not know how to get to 50 games, but if you set some goals and you at least set them, you might be like, well, halfway through, oh, there's no way. That's 50 games is too many. Or maybe 50 games by the end of June of next year. Whatever that goal is, you set them. It doesn't matter the level, doesn't matter whatever it is that you have that you desire to set goals. The most popular ones are, hey, I want to work a state final. Hey, I want to work in the NBA. Hey, I want to work Division I. We've had officials that say those things. Nothing wrong with setting those goals. But then also what I need you to do is figure out what it takes to make those goals. Talk to people to get to those goals. Know what it is. Because it might be you want to be in the NBA, but you're 45 years old. You probably are too old for their program to get into the NBA. But that doesn't mean that the NCAA is not a possibility. That's what I'm talking about. So it should be high, obtainable, change them as they time. Hey, you might find something like, hey, I'm doing this and I don't even like that level. I don't want to do that many games at that level or that conference or whatever. I want to just do a handful. Whatever it is nothing wrong with setting goals. Just set goals. Okay, number 4, ratings. Now, this is a big one because this is really specific to the Illinois High School Association. That doesn't apply, but it actually does apply across the country because every state, every jurisdiction has some kind of rating or evaluation system somewhat in our system. First of all, I want to tell you all this as newer officials. Don't start your career putting all this emphasis on ratings. And if you're a veteran official, stop putting all this emphasis on ratings. They don't matter as much as you think. Ratings alone will not get you in the playoffs. And when I say ratings, most people think when I say ratings that they're the ratings that the coaches give you. We think that that is going to get us in the postseason or that is going to get us a state final. And you'd be so wrong. And I'm saying this as a 3-time state final official. Gary works with state final officials every year, both in the girls and the boys. It's not always about how high their ratings are. And the reason I'm saying that because the highest you can get is in the 90th percentile. And obviously you could be 99 in the coach's rating and 99 in the top 15. And that alone will not get you state final opportunities. It may get you noticed if you are not known. It may get you maybe to go another level based off of where you stand, but it is not going to be the thing that's going to automatically get you. When I started working sectionals, I think some of my ratings were in the 80th percentile. And then they got better as I started to go through the process. But also understand this, varsity coaches are the only ones that can rate. So if you're doing a JV or freshman game or JV A and B game, that does not account. They cannot rate you for those. And then also they made it a little easier. Last year they put in a system where now we could put in our schedules to make sure that, and it gives a reminder to the schools that we are coming and we are one of the officials that are on the game. So what ends up happening, they get an email reminder, and then after the game, they get another email reminder to say to rate. And there's a new rule in, I don't want to get too deep into it, but if they don't rate a certain percentile, they can get suspended possibly for postseason in a year or so if they don't do it on a consistent basis. So that's also something to think about. But I want to also talk about this because this is part of our rating system. And for those that are new or those who are even are aware, we have a power rating that determines our postseason or is part of the evaluation process. It's a 35-point system. That means there are 7 things with 5 points total. The things you control in that are something you can do every year. You control your licensing level. Now, when I say you control your licensing level, that means you started registered. After 2 years, then you can go to recognized, and after 2 years, you can go to certified. You are probably not going to work most postseason if you were not certified. And once you get certified, the good thing about it, you don't have to take any more tests to get that level. As long as you pay your dues, and as long as you're in good standing, you will remain certified for the rest of your career once you get there. It takes about 5 years to get there. But once you get there, you control whether you go for promotion every 2 years and whatever for that process. So the licensing level is really in your control. It takes some time starting out, but once you get there, it's in your control. You got to take the Part 1 exam every year. And our part one exam, and I'll say this is better than it used to be, because when I started, we had to take the National Federation test. It was 100 questions. It was true, false. It was an open book test, but it was 100 questions, and they would try to trip you up on every little stupid little wording because it say shall or may. And if it was shall and you thought it went may, and you put true or false based off of that answer, you would get one wrong, and it could affect your number in that. So we control that because states, all over states, I'm being honest, we go over the test, we talk about it, you got plenty of time to discuss it and then go over questions. And our questions are, for the Illinois High School Association, is 25 questions, but it's out of probably a pool of about 70 or 80 something. Gary will know that because the rules interpreters come up with that number and how many, but you'll get 25 of them mixed in together. And actually some of the questions are actually repeat, so it's not really hard. You control that. You obviously control your most recent clinic. So if you go to clinics every year, you're going to get the total points for that particular rating. The things you don't control, you don't control your contest rating, meaning the coaches' ratings each game. There's a rating from 1 to 5, 1 being the highest. I think 1 is the top. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's state final officials number 1, and 5 is you probably have no business working varsity. But most of them are not. But if they put 5 in the rating, they have to give an explanation of why. So most of the time they're not doing that, and you're not going to know why that reason is. You're not going to know when somebody gives you a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4, or 5. You're not going to know. All you're going to see is that you got a rating or somebody rated you on your personal page. Top 15 list is another thing you don't control. Every school gets a top 15 list. Every conference assigner gets a top 15 list. Gary can maybe explain this, and you don't have to answer this now, Gary, but I think if you have multiple conferences, I think you get more than one. If an assigner has this one conference, they might get one. Gary might can explain that because he would know that a little better than I have, but you don't control that. So if an assigner has 50 people on their staff and he wants to put his top 15, he or she can put whoever they want to on that list. You do not control that. It used to be a while ago we could do that through associations. We can no longer do that. So it's just the school and just the signers that do the top 15 list. You definitely do not control how many playoff games you work and when you work them. You don't control whether you work a regional to the sectional. You don't control if you work a sectional to the super sectional. So you're not going to get 35 points in this whole system unless you completely have worked the state final. It's impossible. And now they've even used to where if you work the state final, you can maintain that level. Now, after a couple years or whatever, you drop off to the last level you did a few years ago, or like 2 or 3 years ago. So that even isn't even in your control. So stop worrying about it. The one thing that's kind of in between, how many varsity games you work. And I say that in between because if you do the right things, you'll work more varsity games than not at that particular level. Oh, and by the way, let me make this clear. It's by gender. So boys have a top 15 list, a contest rating. Girls has their own. So it's not all mixed together. It's how many girls and how many boys. The reason I say in the in-between is because you kind of control if you want to work girls more than boys or whatever. When those opportunities come, you set your schedule a little bit more than you have a little more control over it because you can decide who you want to work for, when you want to work, how many you want to work for somebody. You do get to that point. Now, obviously, if you've not gotten to varsity, you may not get a lot of opportunities. But my point is you control that a little bit. It's not completely in your control, but you can say, I don't want to work so many, or I don't want to work this conference, or I work 10 or 15 in this conference and I work 2 in that conference. So, and I think the number that you put down, honestly, in that, I think it asks you to put the number down. The state doesn't really know what those numbers are because you could put it in at the beginning of the season and the number could change because you could get 3 or 4 games canceled and moved around. And the reason I'm saying this is because you can list the number of games by class. So 1 and 2A is one class, 3 and 4A is another class for both girls and boys. So you can say how many games they are. I mean, be honest, but I can tell you right now, I've set that thing, and then all of a sudden, I thought I had 10 1A boys games, and then I ended up having 2. because the games they switched around and moved, and I've moved from. I even work conferences that have different different classes. Like I worked. I'll just give an example. I worked Chicago Catholic League. There's literally 1A schools to 4A schools in that conference. So if I might think that I'm working a 3A school, and I might be working a 1A school and a 2A school in a game. You control a lot of that, so keep that in mind. But it's something we worry way too much about because it's not something that you completely control. Okay, coaches. Now this might take a little longer to explain, but I wanted you to understand something. As an official, coaches are not your friend at all. They have agendas. Their agendas are for their schools and their players and their communities. It's not about us. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some nice coaches and some wonderful people. I've said this before. Coaches, officials, we're kind of in a family. We're in a big family. But one thing about a family, I might have cousins I don't like. I might have siblings I don't get along with very well, but they're my siblings. So we're all part of this basketball community. We have to kind of treat it like that. But coaches in the bigger picture don't have our best interests as officials at heart. They have a completely different agenda when they go at it, and they don't have the same requirements we have. They don't have to learn the rules the same way we have. They should, but they don't have to pass a rules test like we do. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we need to be careful when we deal with coaches, because you may have a coach that you grew up with, and that same coach, if the right situation happens, will not recommend you for something or will sell you down the river if it affects them. Trust me, I've heard this story many more times. So be careful what you say.
Jeff,
Yes.
let me add a little in to your topic there. Coaches like us a lot, just not on Friday and Saturday nights.
Right. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. And
don't try to be their friend. Don't try to be their friend.
And trust me, I could tell you stories and stories, which I'm not tonight, about relationships that I've had that were sour at the beginning, and now they're really good. And part of it is because, and I had a supervisor, one of my college supervisors, when he took over a position for a D3 conference, it was so funny. He saw a bunch of guys he had never seen, the coaches had seen guys they'd never seen before, and they were complaining to him. And he said to the coaches, he said, you need to give these guys a chance to go to war with them a bunch of times. As you go to war with them a bunch of times, then you'll figure out who you can trust, who you can't. But see, coaches don't think that way. They think that if we're doing something or we're from some place, they think we have some agenda. They might even assume things that aren't even true. I mean, I'm not from Chicago. I don't know how many times people think I'm from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. I didn't. And there have been people who've assumed that I grew up in Chicago. So they think if I'm having a certain team, I have an agenda against those coaches or against coaches that are not in Chicago. It's ridiculous. I grew up 270 miles from Chicago. I don't have an allegiance to Chicago that way, other than living in the Chicagoland area for the last 20 years. But that is the type of things that they will think. So my point is, silence can't be quoted. If you don't say something, you can think something, but be careful what you say to coaches, because they will repeat it to the right person or the wrong person, and and things will get interpreted. So be careful what you say. Be very professional in the way you handle with coaches, but just be careful what you say to them. You don't want to have coaches too many times. I'm actually in one of the conferences I work. I think I'm gonna have this school 5 times, and I'm debating about. And I didn't realize it until I looked over my schedule, and I'm thinking, oh my God. Not only I got about 3 of them are really ball buster games. One of them might be okay, and then a couple of times I'm back-to-back weeks. That's way more than I usually want to work a school. I usually want to have them once at home, once on the road, so that you can see what I am on the home and you can see what I am on the road, and then I don't have to see you again unless it's postseason or a tournament or something unrelated to who's assigning me those games. That's usually what you want to do. You want to be careful with that. Again, coaches will complain about to supervisors things that they don't like. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. You could be the first official that tells them something is illegal, and then they go into that game or go out of that game saying, well, Jeff or Clarence were the only ones that ever told me that. Well, Jeff and Clarence might be enforcing the rule the way we're supposed to. And that doesn't mean it's true, because they might have been told that same thing before. They just want to sell out Clarence and Jeff. That happens. Gary will tell you that. Clarence will tell you that as a supervisor. They say sometimes you're just not of those personalities. And most of all, assistant coaches are not head coaches. And I want to say this, I'm going to talk about assistant coaches a little later, but they're not head coaches. There are rules for the head coach. There's rules for assistant coach, which are considered bench personnel. Treat them accordingly, because if you don't, then things can get out of hand on a sportsmanlike level from your game. And this year, point of emphasis, one of them is bench decorum and bench and unsporting behavior. So this is one of them, but I will talk about assistant coaches very specifically. Okay. Number 6, explaining your partner's calls. Don't do it. I'm going to tell you right now, if you start explaining your partner's calls, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You're going to get the crew in trouble, or you're going to lose credibility. And what I mean by this is that if I'm working with me, Clarence, and Tracey are working a game, and Tracey has a play right in front of him and makes a call, the coach is going to sometimes, if I'm standing right in front of the coach, they might ask me, like, Jeff, what did he call? I don't even go there. I say, Tracey will be around. Tracey will get an opportunity. He'll tell you what he called, or he'll explain. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you start explaining it, you're going to explain the wrong thing. Even if it's something you think you understand. Oh, it was hitting the head, this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. And then you say something, and then Tracey gets over there, or Clarence gets over there, and then they say something, and that's not why they made that call. So get away from that. Don't explain. It is okay to say, Coach, I don't know. I wasn't, and what we should never say, really, now I hate to say always and never, but we should never say, that's not my call. Just say, Coach, I'm looking at another area. I'm concentrating on something else. Tracey had the best look at that. Tracey will give you an explanation. Now, the only time I may say something, because sometimes this happens when I have a double whistle. If I double up with my partner and I know for 100% we have the same thing, and the coach is going to ask me, well, what did I think? Well, what did you? I might be able to say, I had the same thing, Coach. So that might be a little different. But if it's Tracey by himself, or he has a different call, or I'm not 100% sure, I don't need to say anything. Leave that to Tracey to explain their call. Especially veteran officials are very good at explaining their calls. Again, you don't have to know something to give information. It is all right if you didn't see something. Trust me, there's times in games I didn't see this play. I didn't know what happened. I'm 50 feet away. I'm 100 feet away. You're going crazy on me, and I have no idea what happened. It's okay to say that. So just do it professionally, but sometimes you got to tell them what it is, because you're going to unintentionally say something wrong and you don't even realize it, and then it's going to cause a problem. Because then if you say something, well, wait a minute, you guys are not on the same page because Tracey said this and you said this. Why bother? Don't get yourself in that kind of trouble. Stay away from those type of things. Number 7, being scratched. One of the ugly parts of what we do is somebody doesn't want us. So it's okay. We're going to get scratched. We're going to get blackballed, or however you want to say it, or someone doesn't want you to come to their school or their tournament at some point. This happens to every single official that has ever worked for any extended period of time, because we do something. Maybe we're the one time when we enforce the unusual rule that is in the rule book, and we enforce it because it was obvious and it happened, and now they never want to see us again. So the reason I put this in here as well is because there was an official, and Gary, I know, knows him or remembers him. Ed Monahan was a mentor of
I
mine.
thought that's who that was. Yes.
Right. Ed was a mentor of mine. Ed died in at a tournament in the locker room. He actually had a heart attack in the locker room. I bawled like a baby when I found out he passed, because we were all working. It was during Christmas time. Bawled like a baby. So Ed meant a lot to me. Ed did. I could even tell some stories about Ed that are just amazing. He was a 2-time state final official. He probably would have worked a third, but he passed away. But one of the things he used to say all the time, if you have never been banned or blackballed from a school, you're not doing your job. Somebody isn't going to like something you do. you are going to insist on that coach's box being enforced. You're going to tee up a coach because a kid came off the bench instead of going to the table. You're going to enforce a goaltending rule that they don't understand, or not enforce the rule the way that they don't understand. You're going to put the ball at the wrong spot. You're going to let the wrong shooter, or the shooter that they think they should be shooting, this, that, the other, or they saw a game from the NBA and they did it this way. Why aren't we not doing it this way? Or all kinds of things. If you are doing your job, someone's not going to want you there. So, and Fred Allman, who's a rules interpreter, I remember him saying this like it was yesterday. He said, how many schools did I pass to get to that school? And if you think about that, you'd be amazed, especially the more you get into your career, you start going places, you pass 10 schools. So why do I care about that one school that doesn't want me, and I passed 30 schools to get there? And I'm telling you, I have done that. I one time worked a game in Rock Island, Illinois, when I used to live in Wheaton, Illinois. And the crew, it was a snowstorm. And I'm saying this because all three officials came from completely different places. I came from Wheaton. One official, a guy named Mike Burlog, came from Rockford area. Craig Button, who's now on the signer, came from Zion, Illinois. If you know where those places are, to Rock Island, it would have taken us a good 2 hours to get to for each of us. And we had a snowstorm, and I will never forget this. And it was one of the funniest things, because we worked in Moline at Wharton Field House, big gym, when they were playing Quincy. And I think it was probably the only game going on in West Central Illinois at that time, because Quincy and Moline, it's a big rivalry. I think they're crazy, but it took us a while to get there. Showed up right before game time. That's how bad it was. But how many schools did I pass to get there? I passed 3 or 4 different conferences, the entire conference, to get there. So if that school doesn't want me, great. I don't need to go there. So, and you don't need to go there either. The best officials are not wanted by somebody. And sometimes this can change. Like, so if a supervisor changes, the conference changes. There's conferences that have changed in configuration. All of those things can open up opportunities, and maybe that coach that doesn't like you goes to another school, goes out the area. Trust me, it happens all the time. And then you start working at these places again because that coach is no longer there. And matter of fact, sometimes I teed up a coach last year, or I think all 3 of us teed him up, because there was a play at the rim. I might show this play later, kind of how to handle some situations. And he got teed up. One of our responsibilities with most of conference signers, once we give a technical to the coach, we text message the supervisor. Supervisor immediately said, well, that's why no one wants to go to his school. So you'd be surprised. There's all kinds of situations. Don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world if somebody doesn't want you. And here's the other thing. A lot of times you're not going to know that school doesn't want you. You may not go there for a couple years, and you don't know why you're not going there. It just may not have worked out on the schedule, but you're not going there, not because you were a bad official, but because it just is that time. So sometimes that's what happens too. Okay. Number 8, assistant coaches. I said I would talk about this. Assistant coaches are not head coaches. Don't treat them as such. And the reason I'm saying this is because this is very important. Assistant coaches do not have coach's box privileges. They cannot call timeouts. And if anything happens on their bench with the head coach is responsible and can actually be ejected as a result of multiple technical fouls that don't even go to them. So you need to treat the bench personnel or assistant coaches like that. What the problem is many assistant coaches think that they can talk and say and react and do all these things. You have to, with the lack of a better phrase, kind of put them in their place. And what I mean by that is you got to tell them that they can't do that. I can't have you standing up during play. I can't have both of you standing up. Things of that nature. Do it professionally, do whatever. But if they don't adhere or they're egregious, you have tools, technical fouls, bench warnings, all those kind of things. They are there to assist the head coach. They are there not to assist the officiating crew. And that means that, and this is how I am with this. I know you will hear officials say, well, assistant coaches one day will be head coaches. That's great. I realize that. Just like I was a JV official, I was going to one day be a varsity official. We're not going to circumvent rules because you want to act a certain way, because they think they see something on television and they think that applies. It doesn't. They need to go through the head coach and stuff like that. And here's one thing I do not do. I will not have 5 conversations with the bench, meaning one with this assistant coach, one with that assistant coach, one with that coach, and then one with the scorekeeper, and then the head coach. I'm not doing that. I'm having one conversation. It makes my life easier, because I have had times where 5 coaches get up and they're yelling about 4 or 5 different things. What you need to do is make sure that, coach, I can't talk to all of you at once about this play. I have to talk to you. And I've even had coaches tell their coaches to sit down and shut the blank up and all this other stuff, because they know, good coaches know, this can get them in trouble. So you need to minimize your communication with assistants. Talk to the head coach. Okay. Number 9, captain's meeting. The fewer words, the better. It is required, if you were an Illinois High School Association official, it is required pretty much in every sport that we have a captain's meeting. Basketball, we have a captain's meeting. It is with the captains and the coaches. You do not need to say a whole bunch of stuff. Please do not get in your captain's meetings and say, well, it's the black line all the way around, and, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and this is how we're going to call the game. That is not what you need to do. Fewer words need to be said. Find out the captains. I can even tell you what my captain's meeting is like. This is really how short and sweet. I ask for my speaking captains, number 5, number 2. Okay, gentlemen or ladies, this is an Illinois High School Association game played under National Federation rules. And I start nodding my head. We are going to hear the sportsmanship. Any questions? And then usually they have no questions. I will say to my partners, you got anything to add? Now, the one thing you can do, you can talk about things of the court if it's unusual or something like that, or something that might need to be addressed, that something's hanging over and you want to make it clear that's out of bounds, or if you hit that, or if this is touched, or that line is not the division line, that's a volleyball line. That sometimes happens, but that's extremely rare. Say very little. I had an official who's a state final official. They was a state final official at the time. Told the coaches in the captain's meeting, we will address hand checking. And I swear to God, the very first freaking play or 2 possessions, we had a touch. And oh my God, I thought you guys were going to call hand checking. Don't box yourself in. Do not do that. Just talk about what you need to talk about, and also there's another part of it too. We can also ask coaches about now, about if they want to accept a trainer from the other team. That's something we can ask. Sometimes we can ask that in the captain meeting. Sometimes we can ask that another time, but that has to be kind of communicated if that's okay. And that's for concussion purposes. We can get into that later. But we do not need to get into a rules clinic and talk about what the new rules are, the point of emphasis, all that stuff. No, don't talk about that. Keep it short and sweet. Get it out. They're not paying attention. They don't care. Okay. Number 10, multiple conferences. Work as many as possible. And I'm going to say this because it will lengthen your career. It will give you more sanity. It will give you more credibility. If you work multiple conference or multiple assigners over your career, and it's going to be hard early on, but when you start getting and building a schedule, you want to work as many different conferences as possible. Because here's the other thing. The more conferences you work, the more schools you see, the more times a school, even in that conference, might see you. Because what the other thing is, video has become a big thing. They scout through video, and a lot of times if they see you on a game and you do a really good job, they see you in their game, it might add credibility before you even step on the court. Oh, I've seen that guy, I've seen that gal in that game. They did a really good job. So now maybe they don't come with the same piss and vinegar as they might because they've seen you. It also gives you more credibility with other assigners. As you move through the ranks and the varsity level, this gives you credibility. I've even, and I know Kurt Gibson is not the administrator anymore, but I mean, years ago, Kurt used to say that the more conferences you work, if you work the bigger games at different conferences, he knows, or he would know, And one thing he would say was that could help you when I could send you to different places, because I know you're familiar with those schools, or you're familiar with those places. You're not, because part of this is confidence. So if you can display that you can handle a Proviso East or Proviso West game, I'm just throwing out a name, or a Downers Grove North and Downers South, or a Quincy Notre Dame and Quincy High School game that I worked years ago, and somebody sees you, then they may say, hey, of course he can handle these two bottom feeders of this conference, or maybe not the necessarily bottom feeders from the sense of they're not good. It just might be it might be a game you got to be able to manage. Gives you more opportunities. So work multiple conferences. Again, you'll run into coaches from time to time. It's not unusual for me to work a game and there's a coach or two that's later in the year is in the stands, and then when I get to their game, I literally saw them 2 days before, and then the next day. I think I did that this past year. I think I had a Tuesday, or Wednesday, and a Thursday. I think I saw the same coach or coach from each team, because they had one of the teams later on in the year. And then when I saw him in the game, I'm like, hey, I just saw you Tuesday. So, and that's how you build relationships. So that's another thing. Multiple conferences. Okay. Let's get to a couple questions if you have them. And again, trying to be an effort of time. Clarence,
So we do have a question in the chat. Johnny, you asked, I wonder, do you all take caffeine or focus enhancing things to help during the games? I know it's difficult because the games are at night. Johnny, you want to kind of expound on that a little bit real quick?
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, this was before we started into the 30 for 30, so I didn't mean to take us off task. But yeah, I was just curious, like if officials do that. People have a cup of coffee before their meetings throughout the day, or big presentations. Is that like something that people do before working games that you guys know of? Would you recommend that? Would you not recommend that? I would just wonder, just like
A little of interaction that you can have
preparation.
before the game is possible. You don't want to have a whole lot of conversation. That's another thing, even though we kind of talk about that. You don't want to have whole conversations with coaches and people in the stands before games. You want to limit your conversation with them as possible, because here's the thing. You spend
My bad, Jeff. My bad. Let me clarify. I was
Okay.
asking about caffeine.
Caffeine?
Like, yeah, caffeine, like
Yeah, like what?
focus, or like any tips of that nature. Like I said, this is before y'all had started in, so it may seem kind of random.
That honestly is really personal with what you do or what other people do. I mean, unless obviously we can't have alcohol and things like that on the campus and other substances. So you got to be aware of that. But what you do to get you ready for a game is really personal, because all those things affect people differently. I don't do that. I actually, matter of fact, one of the things I try not to do, I try not to eat certain things a few hours before game time, because I don't want to get in the game and then my stomach is messed up, or I'm sluggish, or whatever the case may be. But people do all kinds of things. That's a personal thing. People do some energy drinks. I've heard some health issues with energy drinks. So, I would say this: if you think that there's something you need to take to get yourself up, then talk to your physician, doctors, kind of maybe run it by them and see what they think, because there are things that raise your heart rate real high, and you don't want to raise your heart rate any more than it is, like in a dangerous level. And again, it could be personal. So be careful doing those things. But again, it's personal. If that's something you do and it's worked, maybe you do it, but I don't do those things. Clarence, you guys, maybe.
I would just say, whatever you do, make sure it's healthy.
Yes.
And I'm saying that only, but not just for your individual health, but just for your longevity in this career. You don't want to take something that can, that can affect your performance on and off the court. Because again, if you've been around this game long enough, you understand that sometimes you may have back-to-back days or 3 or 4 days in a row where you got games, and something you took on Monday may affect you by Tuesday or Wednesday or by Friday, and you wondering, why am I feeling so sluggish, or what's, whatever's going on, or I don't feel well. So just whatever you do take, I would just say make sure it's healthy. And like Jeff said, definitely consult with your physician. Especially if you have other health challenges or other health issues, that would be very important. Hope we answered your question, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just always curious how different officials prepare, but that's very helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah, exercise and eat all the healthy things you can. That's the most important thing that we recommend. And that's not only not for what we're talking about, but these are things that, again, when we go to conferences, college conferences, the NBA guys, WNBA people that we talk to, this is what they do all year long. They monitor what they eat. They exercise religiously. Some of them doing yoga, some of them doing Pilates. They're just doing all of the healthy things. So make sure you're putting healthy food in your body. Obviously, your body's going to give you healthy return. So, just do all the things that, again, that are healthy for your body and for your mental state as well. All right. Liz.
Maybe one more, then we
Yeah.
could move on. We might get it to the end.
Yeah. Liz has we get two other questions on here. Liz says, can assistant coaches approach you at a dead ball situation to ask you a question?
If they're respectful, timeouts sometimes are the best time, but let me make this also very clear. They do not have the right to come all the way across the court to ask those questions. That's another thing. Make sure if they come out, either walk them back to their bench or depending on how aggressive they are, address it how you need to address it. But they do not have the right to come all the way across the court to argue a situation. And a lot of times, I'm gonna tell you this, assistant coaches don't even know what they're talking about. Like you think head coaches don't know rules. Assistant coaches are worse because sometimes they're fresh off players or fresh off another level or fresh off, they don't even understand that this is a high school game and that rule you want to apply happened in the Big 12 game last night. That ain't got nothing to do with us. So you gotta know how to have those conversations, and that's a people skill thing. So
All right. And
all right.
and then somebody else just asked, do you have to talk to assistant coach? I think Excel asked, do you have to talk to an assistant coach?
I would say be respectful, but you don't have to have the elongated conversations. And if they are being kind of belligerent, and I'll talk about that a little later, you don't have to talk to them. You don't even have to talk to a head coach, guys. If the right thing is being said or the tone is a certain way, if it's getting combative and you want to avoid some issues, sometimes you just got to say, I can't talk to you. I know there's somebody who says we shouldn't tell them that. Oh, I've told coaches, oh, coach, we're done with this kind of conversation because we're not getting anywhere. You're not going to agree with me. You're going to argue with me. I don't have time to argue this rule that you don't understand. And not because I'm not telling you, it's because we've reached an impasse. We have to learn to move on with those conversations and end those conversations as soon as possible. So, all right, let's move on. Let's get to the next 10 and we'll stop and ask some more questions. Please write them down. Number 11, know your personnel. This is something we use definitely at the higher levels. And basically what it means is know who you are dealing with in your game, from your partners to your players to whatever. And I say know the key players is because a lot of people think that when I say that, that means that we're going to give favoritism to certain players. No, it's not. This what means is that if you, especially we get to where people are being written about in the paper and they're the best players in the state and things of that nature come up, and every one of us is going to run into those, especially when we work into the varsity level. Even some JV freshman game, the son or the daughter of the big time player is playing. If you don't know sometimes who these people are, who these players are, it can cause you problems because that's who they're focused on. And I'm talking about the participants. So if the coach thinks that they got the best player in the country, which I have literally had a coach say my 2 All-Americans, and he was complaining on the road about how his 2 players we were calling the game for the 2 players, and I wasn't fully aware, but I knew that there was a kid that was one of the best players in Illinois, and actually one of them went to Illinois and got a little bit of trouble. The other one went to Illinois and played for 4 years. When he's and the kid he was talking about to play for 4 years was a freshman. So his whole thing was about those players. So if you know that stuff, then I can easily have a conversation about them. So if you know who they are, know who your shooters are, know who your knuckleheads are. There are kids that come in the game that play football and they're really the best football player, but they play basketball and then they come out and play football on the basketball court. If you know who those are, and sometimes these conversations are not what you learn in the paper, it's what you talk with other officials. Oh, 34 on this team, he always is causing trouble. If you know that before the game, I can do whatever I can to head off 34 from being a problem in my game. And maybe it's just call more fouls on him. Maybe it's address it directly to him. Whatever the case may, just know your personnel. Coaches, personalities. Some coaches have reputations. Clarence, again, the signs of Chicago public schools. There are coaches in his league that have such a reputation that we all have issues with them. So when we run into them, we know how to deal with them, or we know where we were prepared for it. So those are things that you want to know. Your partners, if you're working with state final officials or college officials or whatever, I want to know that. I want to know, am I the most inexperienced official on the crew? Even as the most experienced most of the time, I also want to know if I'm working with somebody that's their first varsity game. Because if I know that type of stuff, it can help me alleviate the problems, because you may, as the younger official, may not know how to handle that coach. I may have seen that coach a bunch of times. And then also another thing that coaches do is sometimes if they know one official, they'll try to talk to that official or two officials about the other official all day long. And they'll be like, Jeff, so-and-so isn't doing, wait. Let them officiate. Leave them alone. Like, calm, bring it down, and just talk to us or talk to him or her and whatever that you need to do so that you can get those things understood. Rowdy fans. Some fans have reputations for doing weird things or having rowdy student sections. Know that type of stuff, because sometimes those fans can interact with the other team in a way that gets them riled up and gets them in a problem. So when you do this, one thing I want you to understand, you are not just worried about that 84 feet that's on the road. You're worried about the other things that are around the 84 feet, because sometimes those things can affect your game and you want to be prepared for them. So know your personnel, know as much about where you're going, who you're playing, the situations, and don't be afraid to talk about that in your pregame. We have two rivals who don't like each other no matter what they play. Their football game, they were state final officials. I'll just even tell a very quick story. Two coaches I knew very well. This is a couple years ago. They both won the state championship. One won the state championship in 8A, one won the state championship in 7A. And I knew both coaches very well. So, and ironically, myself and my two partners were both multiple state final officials. So I said in the pregame meeting, and this is something I don't recommend for everybody to do, but it just was a way to take some levity and to have fun with this family that we had. And I said to the kids, I go, guys, our crew tonight has about 9 state championships between us. Okay. I know your football coaches, you guys won the state championship. So just because your basketball coaches don't have a state final on their resume, don't still listen to them anyway. They laughed. They thought it was the funniest thing. One of the coaches was like cracked up because it was a part of levity. And then I tell you how we're a family. One of that coaches the next year went to the state finals of their basketball team, and he actually went this year as well. And so I had to say, hey, coach, I had to eat my words. You clearly got to the state finals. So it's just one of those things. If you know little things about the teams and the programs and even the other programs that they're involved in, it can help you with your game. Okay, watch video. We will talk about this till infinitum. If you don't watch videos of your game, you need to start. You need to watch them, get them wherever you can. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this, but watching videos is very important to your career, especially now. And don't care where you get them from. Videos are everywhere. Videos are on YouTube. Videos are on Huddle. Videos are on their website, on their page. They're everywhere. If you can get a hold of your videos, and it doesn't matter the level. They play the JV game, the freshman game sometimes just like they do the varsity. So if you can get a copy of those games or see those games, watch video, doesn't matter. But the main thing I want to tell you, don't just get the videos to justify your calls. If that's all you're doing, you're doing yourself a disservice. Look at the tough calls, but look at the tough calls and see, hey, am I in position? Hey, I might have got the call right, but am I in the right spot? Did I look confident when I made the call? Did my partner have an opportunity to make that call? Did I call out my primary? All those type of things. Watch video. 13. Stay and watch varsity officials. This is something I used to do when I started. Drives me crazy. I don't see it a lot. A lot of lower level officials work their game, and they get their, once the game is over, they get their bag and they walk out the door. And then they never get better, because I will see those officials over and over again and they never get better. So stay and watch varsity officials. If you're working a lower level game and there's a varsity game that night, stay and watch. Now, it doesn't mean stay the whole time. Stay a quarter, stay a half, but stay and watch. Watch something that they do. You're going to learn something that you didn't know. I remember going to a game years ago and seeing a coach jumping up and down and going crazy and going nuts. And then the official went over there, talked to him with such a calm demeanor. The coach stopped jumping up and down, kind of said, I guess okay, sat down and didn't say another word the rest of the game. Because I stayed the whole game, I sat there and asked him, what in the world did you say to him? What did you say to calm him down? Because he thought you completely missed something in whatever you said, and he kind of explained the process. That official was a Division I, worked in the Big Ten for football for years. Before that was after that incident took place. But those are little things that you can know. You can, how they handle coaches, their positioning, their signals. You could learn some really good things by watching officials. Also, you can learn some bad things that officials do, and maybe I don't like how they do that. I don't want to do that. That's okay too. But if you don't watch them, you won't know anything about how to handle some of those things without having to experience it yourself. And a lot of times when you're working the lower levels, you're working with another younger, not as experienced official. They can't teach you some of the things that a veteran official can teach you, so you can learn those things. 14, be a student of the game. Watch all levels of basketball. We would talk about this extensive. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but because you don't like the NBA, watch the NBA. Watch the officials in the NBA. If you happen to catch a game, if you catch the NCAA, watch how they handle stuff. Watch the rules. Some of the most unusual things will happen on TV that will become controversies. And if you know what happened there, then you might be like, well, wait a minute, how does this happen in high school? I'll give a great example. This happened in Illinois. This did not happen in basketball, but this happened in football. Central Michigan was playing Oklahoma State. This is probably 10 years ago now. They're close to 10 years ago now. And they were playing Oklahoma State, and there was long story short, there's a rule that was enforced incorrectly. They allowed, Oklahoma State was winning, throws this pass. It should have been intentional ground. It was intentional grounding. But they were, the rule by rule, the game was supposed to end. So they allowed one more play, and Central Michigan threw a long pass. They caught it at the 5. Kid does a little shifty move, goes into the end zone. They win the ball game. You might think that was the end of it. They lose the game. It was the only game Oklahoma State lost that entire year, and it was at home. They lost this game because the officials messed up the rule. Long story short, there was one official that was on the crew that's from Chicago area who came to an association meeting and told everybody about how they screwed this up. They got suspended 2 games. But the thing is, I remember when it happened, I'm sitting there thinking, well, what is the rule in high school? So I went and looked at the rule, and it was like, it's the exact same rule. So I knew it was the rule, but that's one of those things that happen. Sure enough, in the semifinals in football in Illinois High School Association, 2 schools are playing, and the same thing happened. They extended the time on the game, or they ran a untimed down. If you're not familiar with football, doesn't matter. They did the same thing. They extended the game when they shouldn't have. They end up kicking a field goal. The team ends up kicking a field goal who end up winning the game, kicks a field goal to tie the game. They go into overtime. That team ends up winning. It caused a lawsuit because it was the semifinal. So the team that won goes to the state championship. This was a start. Ironically, I happened to be working a tournament where the school that was involved, they weren't playing, but their coach was there. And I will never forget this. Somebody asked about the lawsuit, all this stuff, and asked the coach with a straight face of the team that was offended. They should have won the game. He got asked, like, coach, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? Because they were going to go to court the next day. He goes, is who's going to win? And he said with a straight face, nobody. And that's all he said and walked off. My point is if we would watch the football game, and it was a controversy, it was all over SportsCenter, it was all over the news, CNN, everything, because Oklahoma State went on and won every single game. They didn't make the college football playoff that year. That's how big that was. And now we prevented another team from going to the state tournament and playing for a championship because of a rule that we messed up. Other levels can sometimes tell you how to, what do we do? Because I know, because college does stuff a little different, NBA does a little stuff different. But if that happens, what's the rule on that? Be a student of the game, watch all levels, learn from other levels. You can always learn something, even if it's something that doesn't exactly fit. Okay, foul reporting. After we talked about this, this is your time to shine. TJ talked about this a couple weeks ago. When you call a foul, this is the time when you have to explain what you got, and you got to tell everybody. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. I just say, I do not say push, hold, hit. I don't say those things. I actually say what it is. If I say hold, I say held his right arm. Hit him before the block shot. I do all kinds of things to give information. And again, I'm not saying you could get to that point, but I tend to not say push or whatever, because they debate sometimes when you say that. If you say what they did, it kind of explains. But it's your time to shine. It's the time that everybody's paying attention to you. I know we say, if no one knows who the officials are, it's better because no one, that's a good thing. But this is the time when they know exactly who you are, and they will judge your call based off how you report. So your foul reporting has to be crisp. Get to the table that you're supposed to report. Do it with a strong voice, good communication, good signals, all those things. Get in the mirror. I'll talk about that later. Okay. 16, the middle guy. On free throws, I know what the mechanics books will say. Even the IAABO book will say this. But I had one of the best officials in the country I was at 3 camps he was at last summer. Literally was at 3 camps he was at, and he talked multiple times about who we really should watch. And his theory was we need to watch the middle guy, not necessarily the what the diagram says to a T. And the reason he's saying that, because that middle guy is going to be the one that's going to cause us the problems, or we're going to find that something is going to happen with them. And here's what I'm talking about. So in this diagram of the free throws, where we have it's a 3-person crew, 4 and 5, 4 on the right, 5 on the left, in the middle, are the ones that are going to tell us what is going to happen illegally in that play. Because the free throw situation is set up so that 4 and 5 that are on the first block closest to the basket are supposed to get the basketball. That's the goal. That's why they watch basketball for years. At one time used to be lower the block. They brought them up and their justification was, by rule, we want the defense to get the opportunity to get the rebound. So if they end up under the basket, did they want to be there? If they end up getting hit in the face, who probably hit them in the face? If in the elbow, if even 4 or 5 in the middle get hit in the face, get an elbow or something like that, that person is going to tell us who did it if we're watching them. So we're not saying don't watch the other players, but those are the key ones that are going to cause you problems. So if you're paying attention to them, everything else will tell you. There were 2 situations in Illinois a few years ago where that happened, where there were some elbows, and the 3-person crew, nobody saw them. And there was a kid who I think it broke a bone or whatever, and I think he was the middle guy, because it was like on 4 and 5 and 5. I think the inside, the defensive guy threw an elbow, hit him in the face, broke an orbital bone, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and there was nothing called. He ended up getting suspended, I think, for almost the rest of the year, because the school, the conference, and everything got involved. But it was all on film. And none of the officials saw it, because if we're not watching, because we're probably not watching what we're supposed to, but if you're going to watch anything, those 2 players are going to tell us what's going to happen. Okay. Number 17, 2 ears, 1 mouth. This goes without saying. You have 2 ears for a reason. You're supposed to listen. And you have one mouth for a reason. You're not supposed to talk as much as you listen. This is very clear. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get coaches that are going to get really, really, really upset with you. And you're going to think that they're talking about something else, and you're going to start talking, and you're going to answer something or comment on something that's not what they're talking about. So simply listen to what they have to say before you respond. Listen. Like, even if it takes them 30 seconds to say, sit there and listen. And then once they're done and once they're asked their question, then you interject what you need to do. I will also say this: if they interrupt you, if they say anything, I stop them. Wait a minute. Did you ask me this so that you could tell me what the answer was, or did you ask me so you wanted me to answer? That's exactly what I say to them. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And then I can have a conversation with them where I can tell them, especially if it's a timeout or some extended period of time. But if I'm listening, then I can know what to answer, because there are times I think that they're talking about that block charge that I just called, and he's talking about the hand checking that we have missed the entire time, and I'm answering the block charge question. He's not even upset about the block charge. So listen before you speak. Bear it 2 ears, 1 mouth. Get in the habit of doing it, and it's hard because sometimes they're yelling and screaming and acting like a banshee because of something that they think. But if you listen to them, sometimes it will tell you what to do. Okay, number 18. This is probably a little more controversial. Statements versus questions. When I started, and a lot of times, and we still kind of talk about this, like, statements are things that when coaches make, we probably should ignore. I'm going to give a small caveat to that. We have to be aware of what is coming out of coaches and players' mouths. If they're saying things that are statements, they can still be unsporting in nature. We want to answer questions, and then we want to answer legitimate questions. We don't want to just answer stuff that is just that they're asking. But the bottom line is, if they're saying statements, we might still have to address statements. And what I mean by that, so if a coach is saying, you guys have been screwing us all night, is that a question? That's a statement. It's an unsporting statement. It might have to be addressed with an unsporting response, either a technical foul, a bench warning, or you have to give an informal warning to be like, coach, I'm not going to listen to that all night, or we're not going to do that. Be respectful, be professional, whatever you need to say to them. Again, I'm just saying, don't completely ignore them. Put it in your mental Rolodex, even if you don't respond, because if you don't respond to certain statements, and they'll keep ramping it up, and it'll get to the point when then you got to address it. So you might want to think about it. Questions should be real questions. If they're asking questions about, well, why are you guys calling all the fouls against them? Is that a legitimate question? No, it is not. But Jeff, how is that not a technical foul on this situation? That's a real question. So they may need an answer, and a full answer for that. So just understand that there's a difference. And again, I'm saying this because I've heard this at camp. Jerry Pollard, who Gary knows. I've gone to Jerry Pollard's camp a few times, and then I was at a camp he was at out west in Arizona this past year, because he assigns now 2 Division I conferences. He's a Final Four official, whatever. He actually has addressed this and said, we probably are doing ourselves a disservice by saying never to respond to statements, because he's saying a lot of those statements lead to unsporting behavior if we don't address them. So that's just something to think about. Number 19, get it out of your mouth. Don't use the whistle as your pacifier. Too many officials use the whistle as their pacifier. They blow their whistle, and then they keep their whistle in their mouth. This should be the time you should use your voice. This is the time you talk. This is time, especially during dead ball, you might have to say stuff to players. Hey, guys, hey, easy. Guys, I'm watching you. This, that, the other. Hey, stop, guys. Foul's on 19. Well, it's not. It's on 19. It's not on you. Or 15. It's not on you. So, stuff like that. Use your voice. Get it out your mouth. Stop using the whistle as your pacifier as if like you're afraid to say anything. This is the time you need to talk. Your whistle's to stop play initially, and then after that, get it out your mouth. Be able to talk, communicate to players, communicate to coaches, those type of things. Don't keep it in your mouth. Keep it, of course, during play and when the ball is live, but once the play is over, and once we've gone to a dead ball, use your voice, talk. things of that nature. Number 20, the last one that we'll get to the last 10, we'll ask questions. Casebook. The casebook is probably the most important book that you're going to read. And even in the IAABO book, there's case plays. The case plays are actually probably more important than the rule book. And I say that because the rule book is written in a way that it won't make sense. It will be Spanish, Chinese, Mandarin, French, whatever language you don't speak, it will look that way on the surface. The case play tells you exactly how to apply that rule. So if the rule says, you know, this is a technical foul, this is that the other, well, you'd be like, how's that a technical foul? Well, the case book is going to tell you these are the things that make it a technical foul, and this is where you put the ball in play. This is who shoots. This is when you call it, things of that nature. The case book is sometimes the most important book and makes more sense to you in the end. Okay, so read your case books, read case plays. When I first started, that's really all I did was read case plays. Simplified Illustrated book is a case book too on some level. Just read those case plays over and over. And especially if it's something that doesn't make sense, it's probably the best way to learn it. Because the rule book will be like, well, what does that mean? What does verticality mean? What is a false double foul? Like we call false double fouls, and people will say, there are veterans say, I've never called a false double foul. Yeah, you have. You've called a live ball foul and you called a dead ball foul. It's a false double foul, potentially. So the casebook will tell you exactly what that means and how to apply it and to go forward. Questions real quick.
I see any questions in the chat. If anybody have a question?
I had another quick question about foul reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the clinic that I've been to, they kind of said the opposite. With like, don't explain where he hit them or pushed them, just the type of foul it was, and keep it simple. So, what is your like in your experience? Why do you say like go further in detail? Why is that helpful?
Went to a major clinic camp some years ago, and the Division I official thought I had great mechanics, thought I did all the right things because I would go to the table and I would just give the signal. The reason why he said that is because it shows confidence. So if I say he pushed it from behind with his left hand out of bounds before the shot, what is a coach going to say to me? Because they're already asking, well, Jeff, what did he do? Pushed from behind with the left hand out of bounds. Held his right arm on the drive out of bounds. No shot. Before the shot goes up, pushed him from behind before the continuous motion. Things like that. It's something you can incorporate in your game. I think it's great because if you do that, coaches don't say a word. I rarely, if ever, when I report the foul, have a coach ask me, well, they might ask me, well, what'd he do? And I report it, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's what he did. Well, he told you to keep your hands off of him. Tell him not to his kid. So those are things that you can say. Even when I give a hand check signal, he put two hands on him, hand checking foul, out of bounds. I don't just say hand check foul because I want to tell him what he did that was illegal, or the coaches what they did. If I'm confident, and especially on difficult plays. Now, there are fouls that we call very simple. We don't have to explain. Everybody saw he got knocked over, he got hit in the head, this, that, the other. You ain't got to do that. But if it's where it's a debate, a block foul, but he went through his arm, then blocked the shot, or this player fouled him and then the other one blocked the shot, I say 21 hit an airborne shooter before the block shot. 2 shots. It's just a way to give more information and to communicate. It might take some time to get used to that, but if you watch me, I never say he push or hold or whatever. I say what the hold was, and I've gotten so good at it. I'd say what hand got held, what hand he held him with, and I do it so seamlessly that they don't like, okay, I don't even have any questions for him. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and I've never heard it addressed from the coach's perspective. It's always been framed from the scorer's table, oh, they don't need all that. Just tell them. But that makes a lot of sense in light of, from a coach's vantage point, just to kind of put out the fire before it even starts. That makes a lot of sense.
And you'd be surprised. And then again, these are things that I do that I've learned from other officials. It's not something everybody does in every situation. So there are officials who don't do some of these things. I'm just telling you things that I've learned from better officials than me, or officials that are at the similar level that do a lot of these same things. It's not that it's just what has helped us. If you put it into your game and it works for you, use it. If it doesn't, don't use it. It's okay. But I'm just some advice. When I tell guys when I'm watching them, this is something I tell them to do. Any other questions?
Yes, Bryce has a question. He says, would you recommend covering tattoos with a sleeve?
We recommend what now?
Covering tattoos, like on your arm or what have you, with a sleeve.
Oh, you mean as an official, the tattoos?
Yes.
I would say this, probably not. It is becoming more and more common that officials have tattoos. Even at the Division I level, there's guys who got a tattoo somewhere. Now, this is what you might want to think about as you go up the ranks. You might want to consider how you can cover them up in some cases, but tattoos are becoming much more acceptable because if you're from a certain generation, there's a lot of us that got tattoos. I have no tattoos. I didn't do it because I officiated and started in my 20s, so I said I didn't want to do that because it wasn't what the officials looked like when I officiated. It's like facial hair. It wasn't what everybody was doing, so I don't do it. I'm not going to tell you to cover them up because I think I've only seen maybe one or two officials actually do that. I saw a guy in a camp this year had an arm sleeve because he had like the arm sleeve, a tattoo on his arm, and he covered it up. I don't think anybody told him to do that. He just did that on his own. But I have had clinicians say stuff that be like, hey, you got that tattoo that's right here, and when you put your arm up to call a foul, they can see it, and you got to think of who you're working for, because some of these guys are older and more conservative, and when they're thinking, and that's not what they did when they officiated, so there might be a problem. But at the high school level, I don't think Clarence can say, I'm not going to use you because you got a tattoo on your arm.
Yeah,
I doubt.
as an assigner, I'm not going to say I won't use you, but I'll say this: if you know you have a tattoo and it may have some controversial things on it or some
That's a good
things
point.
that could be offensive to others, then that may be something you may want to consider, maybe covering up. Again, your body, your choice, but when you are become a referee, you're still working on behalf of a organization or a school, and some schools might take offense to certain types of
That's
tattoos,
true.
or if it's too graphic, or whatever it may be. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but you guys kind of understand what I'm saying. You just might want to be mindful of that. Like Jeff said, you got to know your audience. We're working around kids at the high school level. We know how schools are. I mean, just think if even as a staff member, that I work for Chicago Public Schools as a staff, and there's certain things that obviously they want a certain professional look, when you're around students and all those types of things. So the same thing applies when it goes to athletics. Just be mindful of that. Again, use your discretion. If you're not sure, check with your assigner and just, get confirmation so that way at least your assigner is aware of it. And if it's something's brought back to them, they can say, hey, I already talked to this official, Jeff Rutledge. He told me about his tattoo, this, that, and the other, whatever the case may be. But I've never experienced that. I've never had a problem with people who have tattoos. But again, just to kind of, cover yourself, just to make sure you're, good. If you think it's something that may be controversial, you may want to talk about that with your assigner ahead of time.
And you might want to talk to them about it, because if you're wearing a sleeve that's underneath the shirt, you might want to tell them why you're doing that. Because if I don't know that and I'm observing you, I might think that you're out of uniform. So keep those things in mind. It's becoming more and more common. I think we're going to get to a time when it's not going to matter at all.
Right.
Because the players, if you watch players, I mean, I think I've seen players, they got more tattoos than anything, and they're 15, 16, 17 years old. So,
Right.
you gotta know the room and know who you're dealing with.
I will say this though, real quick, that I have had an official who had a skin condition that needed to wear long sleeves because of his condition. Again, he brought that to my attention ahead of time when we hired him. So something like that, that's, you know, more like of a medical issue. So again,
Right.
long as you bring that to your assigner ahead of time, that's just good for them to know. So at least that way, you know, if somebody comes back to them with some information or questions, or why does this guy have on a sleeve, or why does this young lady have on the sleeve, you know, they can say they've already discussed that personal matter with you.
Okay. All right, let me get through these last 10 real quick, and this will be pretty quick. Number 21, getting beat. We all get beat. The one thing that we say this all the time is these kids stay the same age. We get a year older. I mean, I was 20 something when I started. I'm in my early 50s. It's harder to get in, you know, even when I was in my 20s, I got beat because they were still 15, 16, 17 years old. I was 20 some years old. I wasn't as fast or good an athlete as some of these a lot of these kids that you come in contact with. So you're going to get beat. So close down on shots, this, that, the other, but don't be trying to get to the other part of the court because you are afraid of getting beat. You're going to get beat. And there's ways that we can talk about how you address that with getting beat. And matter of fact, I think we even showed one play a few weeks ago with a guy official in our area who got beat and tried to referee the play. We could even talk about that at some other time, but it's going to happen. Don't worry about it. Number 22, the traveling rule. I don't care what anybody says. Traveling is the hardest rule in basketball. Period. End of story. I don't think it's block charge. I hear that people say that block charges are easy because block charge, we may have one or two really tough block charge plays the entire game, but some are very easy. They're very obvious and this and the other. Traveling is hard because now we got to identify the pivot foot, when they stopped their dribble, when they caught the ball, did they have control? You know, did they, you know, was this foot because it was on the ground? Did they have control when their foot was touching? Things of that nature. Traveling is very difficult. So, and it's at all levels. It's like, you know, I hate it when people say, well, the NBA doesn't call traveling. I'm gonna tell you right now, we don't do traveling very well at the high school level and at the NCAA level. We do a terrible job at it. That's why they always put out videos about traveling, because we don't do a very good job at it, because it's so difficult sometimes to see, because the play's going away from you, coming to you. You see part of it, you don't see the whole play. But the one thing I will tell you, don't guess. If you're not sure about a play, I'd rather you pass on a play than call something that looked funny and you can't explain it. My thing is, my standard, if I can't tell you which one the pivot foot was when the play happened, I'm probably not going to make a call. I'm just not. So I'd rather not. I'd rather miss an ant travel that barely anyone could see, and then get the big elephant that everyone can see. Those are the ones that, because that adds credibility. And they're always going to complain about travel. He traveled, ref, he traveled. Oh, no, that's not a travel. Like, I'll even say this. The spin move is the one thing I see all the time. Everybody thinks is not a travel, partly because they watch other levels and they think it's okay. Even the NCAA said, a men's side said, they don't call this play enough. So we're going to just say, if you don't see it for clearly, don't call it. That's basically what their stance is. They didn't say it's not a travel. They said, we don't want you to nitpick it. That's how it is. I wish they would change the rule on traveling, but I think it's one of the hardest rules. You just have to start identifying a pivot foot. It can be very difficult. Locker room. This is a big one. This is what I've seen people get into a lot of trouble about. First of all, locker rooms, right, wrong, or different, are not totally private. You are usually being put in a room that somebody else has access to, and sometimes it's not even the game administration, and people are walking in and out of that room. So be very careful what you say. Be very careful what you do. I even remember one time I was at, I won't say the school, it was in the western suburbs, and it was a Saturday morning, and there were like 8 or 9 officials in there because there were 2 or 3 different levels going on at the same time. And we're in the girls' locker room. While we were sitting there, literally, I'm getting ready to take my pants down. I had some tights on underneath. a girl walks in like she just owned the place and walked in the room and looked, and we were like, whoa. And I mean, there was a bunch of grown old men, and there was this teenager walking in this room, and we had to address this with the game administration about people just walking into the room. So even something like that, because what if one of us had our pants down or something happened and now there's an accusation? So be aware when you are doing things, somebody can be in that room and come in, especially other coaches from other sports or other faculty. That happens all the time. Again, be very careful what you say. If you're not going to say something nice about a coach or a player or something that could be seen disparaging, probably wait to have that conversation some other time. Don't have that in the locker room, because what's going to happen is someone's going to overhear something you said and they're going to react to it in a situation. I'll give you a quick story. This is exactly how this happened. I worked a football game years ago in Central Illinois. I won't say the school, but they were playing a big rival in a football game. Ironically, everybody on the crew except for me was from the same town. They were from Warsaw, Illinois. If you know where Warsaw, Illinois is, by the lake, by Iowa. It's literally by the lake. And like, long story short, we all drove together. It was an hour or something to this game. We have a pregame in the car. We talk about all this stuff. And one of our referee, his little brother was his first varsity game. So we're there, we're going over everything because we're cognizant that this is his first varsity game. It's the middle of the season. This game's for the conference title. Like, it was big. So we go to the school. When we get to the school, they put us in a locker room that's right next to where the coaches were. We literally are just having a ball. We are cracking on each other. We're making jokes. We're this, that, the other. We don't have a pregame because we've already had a pregame in the car. The team that was the host team loses the game. Do you know the coach confronted us about our behavior before the game? Confronted us, said that we were not ready for the game. And we had to kind of check him and say, listen, we had a pregame and this, that, other stuff. And we don't appreciate that. But my point is, it didn't matter. We were being observed, and they made judgments of our crew based off of the thing that happened before that game. That can happen all the time. So be careful what you say. Be careful the language you use. Anything that might be some language that you wouldn't want other people to hear, don't say it in that space, because it can be used against you. I've known officials to lose playoff games or lose the rest of their season for suspension because that happened. So
Hey,
again, go ahead, Clarence.
Jeff, real quick, I just want to share a quick story myself. I had an official a few years ago who was in a locker room talking about, it wasn't the game that they were about to officiate. It wasn't about those two coaches. It was about a different coach at a different school. Well, long story short, one of the managers, the game managers, went and told their coach, hey, don't you know Coach so-and-so at such and such a school? And he was like, yeah, why? Well, I just heard the official in there talking about your best friend in the locker room. Okay, and needless to say, the words that the official was saying weren't pleasantry words. It was on the other end of the spectrum. So bottom line is, you just never know who knows who. I know earlier Jeff talked about, we're not friends with coaches and things like that. You may become acquaintances through the years of working with them and having a relationship of working their games, but just be mindful of what you say, because you don't know who knows who and who knows who and who knows who and so forth and so on.
Right, because sometimes even the faculty that comes in the locker room might be a coach at another school, and you might be talking about their school that they coach at. They work at that school, but then they coach at another school in another program. That has happened. So be very careful. Technical fouls. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time just talking about this, but I'm going to say this. I think one of the biggest myths when we say technical fouls are just like any other foul. No, the heck they're not. And I'm going to tell you why they're not. Because if you call them, everybody gets mad about them. Even you get mad about them because I had to tee him up or her up and I didn't want to. So you're mad about it. So they're treated differently. They just are. I know we want to say we want to call them calmly. We want to call them with professionalism. But honestly, when I call a technical foul, I'm probably mad that I had to call a technical foul, because now I got to report this to my supervisor. Now I got to put it in a game report, and if I throw them out, now I got to file out a whole special report on it. It can be a pain in the behind. So they are different. And then the other thing I want you to know about technical fouls, if you're pissed off because you called a technical foul, your partners need to get with you together and talk about this. One of the things that I always tell guys in pregame, if we call a technical foul, I don't care how innocuous or how calm that technical foul is, we need to talk about it, because there might be some information you don't have so that we can adjudicate it properly. Meaning there could be a foul, a violation, there could have been something else, double foul, where we put the ball in play, who shoots the free throws, what order we shoot the free throws, all those things that come into play. It's very different when you call a technical foul. So we need to talk about those things. Point of interruption is not the spot of the foul. Always enforce in high school in the order in which it takes place, and slow down. If it seems like it takes a minute for you to talk about all of that, talk about it, because it might be that you might miss a step and then forget that, wait a minute, we were supposed to shoot this free throw. I've had that happen. I had 2 correctable errors in the same week. One of them involved, this was years ago, one of them involved technical fouls, and we weren't told about the bonus situation, so we shot out the order and this, that, the other, and we did ask. We asked the table, hey, are we in bonus? And they were like, no, we're not in bonus. Oh, okay, we're not in bonus. So we shoot the technical fouls out of order and all this other stuff. It can cause a whole lot of problems. So slow down, talk about it, because it might be, you might even have to discuss whether the action is flagrant. You might have to discuss, it might just be, just take a moment to just have to reassure that everybody see what happened or didn't see what happened, or better yet, if your partner didn't see what happened, how do they know how they're going to address it going forward? So talk to them about what the technical was for, circumstances, administrative, if it's going to affect the foul count, all those things, which they do, but it might affect every situation a little different. So talk about it. Number 25, rule book language. Use rule book language. I'm not going to get too deep into this from the effort of time, but it adds credibility to everything you do. If you tell a coach the rule or use the rule book language, it's going to add credibility. If they say, well, wait a minute, he wasn't moving. Coach, he was in legal guarding position the entire time. He can move. But wait a minute, isn't it over the back? Coach, he had verticality the whole time. He didn't displace the player. That's not a foul. He out jumped him. This, that, the other. But he's just boxing out. Coach, you can't take away his verticality to displace the player. Use rule book language when you can. Avoid things like moving screen. I hate it when people say moving screen, because moving screen doesn't say that the foul's illegal. Moving screens, you can move and set a legal screen. You can be stationary and set an illegal screen. So stop using those terms. Reaching in, how many steps on travel, things of that nature. It will add credibility to your calls. And here's the thing, it will get you out of a lot of arguments. I don't know, to tell you how many arguments I've gotten out of just by using rule book language, because the coach doesn't understand what the heck I'm talking about. Coach, that's verticality. The verticality. He's got verticality. What's verticality? Coach? He's moving obliquely. He moved obliquely when the contact happened. They were like, obliquely? Unless you're a math teacher, you may not know what obliquely means. I didn't know what obliquely meant until I became a basketball official. So use rule book language. Euro step. There are terms that we can use that are descriptive. A Euro step is not a rule term, but it has been used in the rule book to describe a certain action, whether it's illegal or illegal. It's not illegal in itself, but it's a descriptive term. That's okay, but don't get away from terms that are only talking in a way that there's coach speak that doesn't explain, especially when they're arguing a call. Again, adds credibility. I've talked about this again, and also if you repeat that and say that when Clarence or Gary gets a phone call to say, well, wait a minute, he told me that he had legal guarding position because he moved obliquely. What the hell is he talking about? Clarence and Gary can back you up and say, well, that's the rule, coach. That's what he told you. And then if they see the film, they really can back you up, because then they know that that's what you at least ruled on. And judgment calls are harder to debate than rules questions, than rule situations. So use the rule book language. The big game. I'm going to say this. And again, I've been doing this a long time. And I'm gonna tell you, I've worked a ton of what you would call big games. And I mean, sometimes they were the number one, number two in the state kind of games. Worked them and did many conferences over the years. Had situations that when I looked on paper, they weren't big games, and now they're undefeated, and now they're playing. You do not want to get in a hurry to work these guys. Do not get in a big hurry to work them because they come with stuff that you're not aware of. It is not, I worked my first state final, my very first state final, semifinal game that I ever worked. There was a reporter that tweeted my name out. Basically said in so many words, is one of these two teams going to win the game, or is Jeff Rutledge going to win the game? That's literally what he said. And you might say to yourself, like, and that could be stressful because it's the biggest moment that you could be in your career up until that point, and you are being put on blast about something because and what's funny, in that game I didn't have a foul for almost 2 quarters, and then all of a sudden I had a string of fouls in the 4th quarter but I still had less fouls than everybody else, but that's how people perceive it. So you don't necessarily want to always work the big game. I tell this story too. Gary knows what I'm talking about. In 2019, I worked my last state final. I worked the 4A championship between Belleville East and Evanston. I had relationships with both coaches, or at least I knew the coach from Evanston really well because he actually coached from Central Illinois and moved up to Evanston, which is in the top corner of the state. I say this because it was in 2019. What happened the next year? COVID. We did not play a basketball game, at least a regular basketball game, that whole 2020 until the spring, which they didn't have a tournament and all this other stuff. The following year, after that, me and Don Williams, who had worked this game that you would have thought was the biggest game of our career, we're working 2 of the worst teams in the state of Illinois on a Wednesday night on a December. And I say this because people think because you are a certain level, you're working all the big games. You'd be surprised. We work a lot of the crappy games too. Matter of fact, they need really good officials on some of the crappy games because some of those games are the most difficult games to work. It's easy to work the 1 and 2, and everybody's paying attention. Those are easier because sometimes the game will call itself. When you got to work the 2 teams that can't put the ball in the hole, if the ocean was standing next to it, those sometimes can be the most difficult situations. And me and Don were working it. And I even made a point to Don. I was like, Don, can you believe we worked the last boys state final 2 years ago. And here we are working this game in the northern part of the state, and nobody knows and nobody cares. And I was like, it was just kind of funny. And it was a joke that we made with each other, this, that, the other. So you may not want the big game because it comes with other attention, paper, video, stuff like that. And if you screw something up, like Clarence said, there was an official who was in a tournament game, not a postseason game, in a tournament game called a backcourt violation. And it was a big game. And he got the call right, but there was a whole Twitter sphere saying how terrible the call was. And I can't believe he called that, and he does that all the time and all this other stuff. Man, I'm telling you right now, that's smoke I don't want. If I love working terrible games where nobody knows I'm in the gym. I don't want to work a lot. I can only handle so many of those games. You don't want to work a bunch of them. And if you do, and you got to a point, you want to be prepared when you work those games. You don't want to just work them because, oh, it's the 2 best team. Because if something goes wrong, it can affect your career. It can affect your career. Dealing with the clock. This is big. We'll talk about this continuously. Shot clock is coming, guys. So we got to get to be good at clock officials. The better the clock officials that you are, the better you get on the shot clock, because you need to know where the clock started so that you know where the violation is. And I'm talking about do the math in your head. You got to know all this stuff. You got to pay attention when that clock starts and when it stops. I went to a camp one time years ago. I'm working with 2 Division I officials, unbeknownst to me. We're in a big gym and on a major campus, and we had like 5 or 6 clock situations. And I got the clock right. They didn't start properly, didn't stop properly. I corrected like the 5 or 6 situations. 2 Division I guys, the clinician started going off on them because he was like, how in the world did he said, do you work Division I? And he wasn't trying to be disparaging. He said, no, I don't. You guys are going to get fired if you keep doing that. Like, that's how big the clock is. We got to pay attention to the clock in all areas of the clock. You got to know when it starts. You got to know when it stops. You cannot have several seconds go off the clock and not be aware. Every time that blow your whistle, you need to take a peek at the clock if you can, especially if they have clocks in 2 areas or whatever. Or when you go to that pregame, look where the clock is so you know where to look, and to take a quick peek without having to turn around. Look at the clock. We got to get clocks right. Number 28, 2 more. Know your why. This is more of an emotional thing for me because you got to know your why. If you are doing this, your why is going to be different than my why. Your why might be different when you start. Your why might change as you get to doing this. I will be full disclosure. I have a 4-year-old who I had later in life. When I officiated for 20 something years, I did not have any children. I ended up getting married later in life, had a stepchild, whatever the case. When I first started officiating, it was one of the greatest things that I could do. I wanted to do all the games. I wanted to be everywhere. And then I've when I started having a family and stuff like that, I'd rather be home on Friday nights, or I'd rather be home at some point. That is going to be your situation. Your why is different. Some people do this because they make extra money doing it, and it pays their kids through college. Some people do it because it's a great exercise that you get paid to do. Some people want to be as successful as they possibly can. It doesn't matter. It's like setting goals. Know your why. Doesn't matter what your why is. Just figure it out and continue that motivates you. Because here's the other thing. If you don't have a why, when the times get tough, it will be harder to overcome them. Okay? So know what you are doing this for. And if you're doing it for the right reasons, which is your reason, it's not my reason. I may think that doing 5 5th and 6th grade games is silly. It doesn't matter. That's you're doing it for. And if that's paying money to help you pay bills for your child and situations, it changes. My 4-year-old's autistic. I say this because it completely changes my perspective on stuff and why I do certain stuff. So there are times when I want to be away from the house 4 and 5 days out the week. Now I could care less. 2 times is enough. And if I go, I do have a supportive wife that kind of doesn't mind me doing that. And that's the other thing. You gotta support the other people in your family when you're doing this, because you're leaving that house 4 or 5 times a night. That means your wife or your husband is taking care of things that you don't have to take care of, and then you're getting home late and this, that, the other, and got to get up in the morning. You find your why. I don't care what it is. Just know you have to have something. Doing it for the kids is a myth. I'm telling you that now. I say it's a myth because people say, well, I do this for the kids. Trust me, the kids don't care. They keep coming and going personally. If you love the game, that's a good enough reason. I mean, yes, you can do it for the kids, but it's going to be very fleeting if that's the reason that you're doing it. Just know what you're doing this for and why you're doing it. And it's extremely personal on what you do. So moving on. 29, refusing assignments. There's acceptable reasons to do it, and there's not acceptable reason to do it. It's okay months in advance if someone gives you a game and there's a good reason, work, family situation, you can refuse games. That's okay. We're independent contractors. We don't have to work anytime we don't want to. If we think that something is going to conflict with our family, and you want to get off, do it. If you know you have work situations, get off. If you know you got to travel an hour and the game starts at 5:30, but you get off at work at 4:30 and it's going to take you a while to get there for that game, you can refuse those things. But you usually got to have a conversation with the supervisor. You got to tell them kind of what's going on, because they may not realize that, hey, I live in Indiana, so if Clarence sends me to the north side up to Lane Tech to work, that might be a lot to get through Chicago to go to Lane Tech. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't do the game. Otherwise, it just won't work. Or I got to let him know, like, Clarence, I might get there 20 minutes for game time. Is that okay? If he's okay with that, then that's a conversation. But be willing to refuse assignments if those type of things come up. But it can't be for the game's too far, or it's simply too far. It's 45 minutes from my house. I don't want to go. No, that's not a good enough reason. You got to basically, because then you need to have conversations to say, hey, don't send me to certain places at certain times. Because there are sometimes during the weekday, there's certain places that you can only go because of where you work. So that's okay. But refusing assignments are good. And also keep in mind, Clarence might have a different situation about why he has you refuse assignments than Gary does. Gary might have a completely different set of rules because Gary's in a different part of the state. He doesn't have to deal with the same probably traffic situations that we do in Chicago. So how they put together schedules might be completely different. So you have to have sometimes conversations. You don't want to do this a bunch. You don't want to be high maintenance, but it's okay to say, hey, I cannot make it to that school. Or better yet, during Christmas time or holidays, sometimes guys will give you a game at 1 o'clock and then the next game is at 4 o'clock. Well, it might take an hour and a half for that game to get over, but I might have to go an hour and a half to get to the next game. There's no way that's going to happen. Sometimes the assigner doesn't know that or not thinking that when they give the assignment. So just have a conversation. Hey, can I get a later game or can I just not work that game that day and this, that, the other? It's okay. I mean, and also just because you don't got the sniffles, that's not a good reason. Work games. Don't. I feel a little cold. Now, if you get sick and you're hospitalized, that's different. I'm just talking about don't be because I got a head cold. I'm not going to work the game today at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the game is at 6. Don't tell them that. If it's something days in advance or whatever, things of that nature, just tell them that and take away the game. A lot of times they're okay with it. Last thing, get in the mirror. We've talked about this. If you don't get in the mirror or do some practicing with your signals and your approach and you're getting in the reporting, if you don't do this, you are doing yourself a disservice. Get in the mirror, know what you look like, practice it. I have a funny story. One Division I official, he's from Ohio. I'll even say who he is. I'll put him on blast. His name is Edwin Young. Works the Big Ten, works some other major conferences, worked the NCAA tournament. And he says when he gets out of the shower, he doesn't towel off. He goes through every signal in the book, apparently. And this is the funniest thing, because we look at him like it's funny and I make fun of him when he says it, but if you think about it, this makes sense. He gets in the mirror and he reports everything. Hit, push, whatever, out of bounds, count the basket. Like he goes through every one of the 30-something signals in the book. And he says by the time he gets to the last signal, he's dry. It's the funniest thing, but then I to be honest with you, now I've never done that. I tried it and it actually does work, but it's like I feel silly doing it. But I will say this: if you are just with me, I will go to I'll go to my car, and I will count. I will go to the car and I'll say 13. Push out of bounds. I will say and go, well, going up. I do all of that in sometimes the weirdest situation. Like some people might, like do the little basketball thing when they, like they cross it up. That's what I do going. I do it all the time. My wife said, "Are you making calls?" She laughs at me. She thinks it's the funniest thing. So I do this constantly because when I get in the game, it's muscle memory. And I've said this before. One of the things is that you do if you play video games or you've done things where you got to press buttons and you can't look at them. I have a video game thing right here in my hand, if you can see it. I don't look at the controller while I'm doing all of that. I literally, like, I know where the square is, the circle. I know where it's at. I don't have to look at the controller to do it. It's the same logic. If you were doing this as it comes muscle memory, you can do it and it becomes natural instead of it being something that you got to think about. Thank you. I'm done. Any questions?
Awesome job, Jeff. Awesome job. This is a great, great, great training that you presented on tonight. Hopefully everyone's been taking notes. If anybody has a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Let me go back up and see. Somebody, Nagar, you asked, will there be officials at the table handling the shot clock for varsity games, and I replied that there should be, but again, with this being a new rule, each conference will kind of handle that from a separate situation. So we'll
and also I will say this: there's a conference in Central Illinois. The Central State 8 is doing shot clock for all JV games.
Right. So just so you know, the new rule for next year, the state has approved shot clock for primarily varsity. That's what they have in writing. But again, each conference can decide if they want to use it for their JV level as well. So, again, this is new for Illinois. This will be coming out soon as far as, which conferences will be using it for varsity, which ones will be using it for JV, which ones will be using it for both. Some may even use it for freshman level. So, just kind of stay tuned, for that information as well. Anybody have any questions about anything?
I got a comment.
Go ahead. Yes, Gary, please.
We've been on for about an hour and 45 minutes, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And Jeff, you said you had 30 or 30, right?
Yes, that's the theme.
And I've been doing this for 50 years. And I had 4 pages of notes that you presented tonight. I don't know how many people we had connected with us tonight,
About 30.
but I hope they had the same 4 sheets that I got.
Absolutely.
This is valuable stuff, really good, strong information, especially in the experience range that we're talking to. And there's no doubt in my mind we're addressing our audience with the material that we need to be addressing them with at this point in time. Excellent job, Jeff. Much appreciated.
Yes. And just so you know, those of you all that are still on the call, I put a link to the IHSA Basketball Assigners throughout the state of Illinois. I know Jeff mentioned in his presentation about contacting the signers to maybe get games and things like that. You'll have their name, their location, and their email address if you want to reach out, because again, we have people from all over the state on this particular training. So feel free to reach out to signers in your area or even in other areas, maybe areas that you're willing to travel to, like Jeff said, work in multiple conferences. This is a great way to kind of reach out and just tap into those individuals and start building relationships with those assigners. And believe it or not, a lot of the assigners assign not just the conferences for that school area or that district, but they may sign some holiday tournaments or, summer league stuff or spring league, or, sometimes schools may call and just say, hey, we got a weekend shootout. We need some officials, so you can probably get a lot of work just reaching out to those assigners on that list. So definitely do that.
I want to address one question. I see something, I think it's AJ Zimmerman said in the slide under technical fouls, the note that point of interruption is not the same as a spot of the foul. The reason I'm saying that is because, well, first off, that is a true statement. Point of interruption is not necessarily where the spot of the foul is. It could be where the ball is at during double fouls and other situations. So simultaneous fouls, other stuff. So you got to know what the difference is. The reason I'm saying that because most people or most officials think alternating possession is point of interruption. Those are not necessarily the same thing. You could have a point of alternating possession for a point of interruption, but it's not always the case. There's a specific situation that happen. So that's what that means. I hope that is answering your question. I just saw that. I thought I needed to address that. Great point.
Anyone else have any questions or anything before we get off the call? And we can stick around again for if anybody wants to stick around after everybody gets off, if you have any individual questions that you want to ask. But again, Jeff, great job. Myself, Jeff, and Tracey will be heading out to Colorado Springs, Colorado, Thursday through Sunday for the IAABO Fall Seminar Conference. Next week, we'll kind of give you a slight highlight of what we experienced out there. This will be our first time attending. For those that have become IAABO members, thank you for joining. Hopefully you've gotten your new IAABO handbook that's been in the mail. It came in the mail last week. Definitely a great read. I know Gary talks about it. Gary, you want to chime in on what your experience has been since you've taken advantage of IAABO?
Yeah, I, like everyone else probably that has joined up at this moment, was was I was needing more information, I guess you might say. Something to solidify what I was thinking as we went forward with this thing. But looking at what IAABO has done for us, their work and their presentations on things is unmeasurable. I mean, they've got everything covered from A to Z on different play situations, different rule situations. I really like the play situations and the penalties, and then the rationale behind everything. They break it down into 3 segments on every rule that we have, and I think it's pretty strong. So somebody that maybe learns better visually than maybe reading, learning this, seeing this visually has been a big help for a lot of people, I believe. So, but I'm very much bought in, and it took me, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get through some stuff and satisfy my curiosities. And I think this is going to be good for everyone in the entire state of Illinois. And my plan is, as Jeff and Clarence, as I discussed with you and Tracey also, my plan is to start off with the rule interpreter level and then filter it down to the rules clinicians all over the state, and then down to the officials all over the state. That's going to be a monumental task, but I think we're off to a good start, and I think it's going to be advantageous for all of us at some point in time. So, but yeah, I think it's a very good program, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Great. Thank you so much. Tracey, did you want to chime in on anything?
Hey, everybody. We really appreciate all y'all coming to this. This is a very important Zoom meeting that the closer you start, the more you come to this, the more information you'll have. So that's what we're trying to do. Only thing we're doing is being official servants. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. That's at the end of the day, that's all we're doing. We're just doing what we're supposed to do. That's all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for being on the call. We'll stick around for those that may have any questions or any just off the record information that you want to maybe discuss with us. But again, thanks again for being on the call. We'll be back next Monday again, and have some questions for us. So just so you know, next Monday we're going to just go. Majority of that meeting is going to be just answering your questions about anything related to basketball, on the court, off the court, preparation, exercise routine, whatever. Whatever you can come up with, let us know. Bring your questions next week. We'll definitely have a great time kind of chiming through that information as well. I'll record. We'll get the recording out to everybody. We'll follow up with the email so that you guys can go back and review this information. Because again, Jeff, outstanding job, great job, a lot of information. So definitely go back. And like I always say, when you watch videos, any type of videos, don't just watch it, study it. Meaning slow it down, break it down, rewind, fast forward, take notes, do all of the things so that you can get it to your memory. All right. So
next week, I'm gonna have a bunch of things for you to write down.
Tracey got part 2.
And if you guys have any questions, still ask away. That's why we're here.
Yeah, but thank you guys for being on the call. For those that's going to get off and watch the Bears game, by the way, the Bears are winning so far. So, go Bears. But we'll see you guys next week. But for those who want to stay on and ask any questions, feel free to stick around.
Good night, you guys.
Good night. Good night, everybody.